Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Good evening and welcome to Hudda Tonight. I'm Ali Coleman, our bureau host for this evening's program. Thank you very much for being with us as we continue to provide news and information from across the Muslim Ummah and also have important discussions. Today's date is the 19th of Dhul Hijjah, the year 1437 on the Islamic Hijra calendar, and the 21st of September 2016. Tonight in our news segment, we have a number of things to look at. One of them is in Lagos State. This is a story about the hijab worn by students at a school. This is the continuation, actually, of a story that has been unfolding for several months. We thought that this was the end of the story when a Nigerian court reinstated permission for the students, the hijabi students, to wear hijab. However, this court decision is being challenged. We go back to Nigeria, Lagos State, to look at the latest in this ongoing saga regarding hijabi Muslim students in Lagos. We tonight also go to look at right now in New York City in the United States, world leaders have been coming in for a General Assembly meeting of the United Nations, the 71st of its kind since the creation of this organization. We have some comments and some excerpts from the comments that were made in the opening remarks given by the Secretary General for the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, regarding Palestine. He's saying that it is madness to deny the basic human rights of the Palestinians. He's very frustrated. The journalists are looking at his comments saying that this is the first time since he's been in office that he's somewhat taken the gloves off. He's speaking very matter-of-factly and being very sharply critical of Israel and Palestinian leaders. We look more at this tonight and also go to this story in the United States. You know, the Obama administration has been facing opposition by the Republican Party, including not only those in the U.S. Congress, but also those who are governors for several of the 50 U.S. states that have promised to work towards preventing the Obama administration resettling Syrians displaced from their home country. We go to the latest in this political struggle where a federal court has rebuffed, has rejected efforts by one of the governors in the United States. We look at these and a few other items in our news segment tonight. And after news, we're looking at the subject of Burma, also known as Myanmar. We're going to be joined by Professor Emaad.muhanna tonight, looking at the subject of Myanmar. Short break. When we come back, inshallah, we start with our news segment. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Hudda Tonight. This evening's news segment starts in New York City at the site of the 71st United Nations General Assembly. Some of the remarks that were made by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is what we're looking at for this first item related to Palestine and the ongoing efforts that we presume sincere efforts. We hope and pray their sincere efforts to resolve the crisis that the Palestinians are facing, deep encroachments and violations of their basic human and civil rights. And in fact, the Secretary General says that the denial of Palestinian rights is quote unquote madness. He said, quote, that this is madness. Replacing a two-state solution with a one-state construct would spell doom. Denying Palestinians their freedom of and rightful future, and pushing Israel further from its vision of a Jewish democracy towards greater global isolation, end quote. He also says that the two-state solution, the prospects for it are being lowered every day by all these actions over the 50, actually we could say 70-year history of Israel's occupation since its creation, technically 67 years exactly. Mr. Ban, he continues saying that it pains me that this past decade has been 10 years lost to peace. 10 years, he said, lost to illegal settlement expansion. 10 years, Mr. Bond said, lost to intra-Palestinian divide, growing polarization and hopelessness, end quote. He is very frustrated with the time that he has been in office as the UN Secretary General. Obviously, one of the great hopes is to resolve this long-standing conflict, crisis in Palestine, and it would be great if they could come to office, the Secretary Generals, and have it resolved on their watch. But he is about to leave office. He has to the end of the year before Mr. Bond's term as Secretary General is ended. They're currently the process has already begun to look for, to vet potential prospects to replace him as the Secretary General. Now we want to remind you of the history going back to 2 years after the United Nations was established in 1945, as early as 1947. We have resolutions, multiple resolutions, hundreds of them that have been passed against Israel in various ways by different bodies, including the UN General Assembly, the UN Security Council, as well as the UN Human Rights Council. So we have a long history of resolutions passed against Israel in various ways. Unfortunately, none of them have been enforced. The understanding that many have is that it's simply not in the interest of U.S. foreign policy to allow the Palestinians to enjoy their human rights. U.S. is a chief enabler that allows Israel to continue its actions, its criminal acts against the Palestinians. We pray for success and find a way. Governments generally are motivated by benefits. So the challenge is to find a benefit to draw Israel and the United States to achieving peace. They will not be motivated by what is morally right. That's just not the way that governments work. And so the challenge is to find a way to draw them to see benefits in peace in Palestine. We move to our next story, dealing also with Palestine in the United States. This takes us to the state of California, to the University of California in Berkeley. This has to do with a course offered by the Social Science Department at UC Berkeley that was suspended, removed from the roster on Palestinian history. The name of the course was Palestine, a Colonial Settler Analysis. Because of the title and the syllabus for the course, there were Jewish organizations that protested and demanded that the course be removed from the course offerings at the university. That's more than 40 Jewish organizations put pressure on the university to have the course removed. And the Dean for Social Sciences, Ms. Carla Hess, did pull the course. And unfortunately, one of the persons who teaches the course, his name Paul Hidway, says that he wasn't informed. He said, quote, that the university threw me under the bus and publicly blamed me without even contacting me about the cancellation of the course. Now, this triggered some protests. There were angry demands to have the course reinstated by the students at UC Berkeley. And in fact, they did, but first they had to make some alterations to the syllabus. However, the dean, Ms. Hess, she says that the core content of the course has not been altered. Only, in other words, superficial changes have been made to placate, to satisfy the protesting 43 exactly Jewish organizations. Very interesting development where we're continuing to see those who are interested in academic freedom. And this is a very important principle in academia for students and professors to be able to pursue truth wherever it may lie, regardless of whose toes it may hurt. This is a great and a very important principle in academia for professors to be able to write and publish, both in the scientific, with the hard sciences, but also in social sciences as well. And so this was the case that they were making, that if they continued to allow this course to be suspended, it would be a great threat to academic freedom at the university. They responded with somewhat of a compromise. We continue to our next story. It takes us, we stay in the United States, but it has to do with the Syrians that have been displaced. The U.S. President Barack Obama promised last year to settle over the period of 1 year 10,000 Syrians in the country. He met very stiff and passionate opposition. His promise to do this came at a time when Donald Trump had announced, this U.S. presidential candidate had announced that he would, if elected, would impose a ban on Muslims. Well, amid this same environment, there were at least 20 governors from the different U.S. states who promised to fight the U.S. president, in addition to those in the U.S. Congress. One of them was the governor of Indiana, Mr. Mike Pence. He promised to take measures in his hands and work his best to prevent Syrians from entering the state of Indiana. However, a federal court of appeals for the 7th Circuit has said that the governor does not have the qualifications more than the U.S. State Department or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, to determine whether or not Syrians, who is a threat and who is not a threat. In other words, the governor was saying that the basis for preventing Syrians from entering was that they would be a security threat to the state. However, the federal court, this is a panel of judges, and this a U.S. Court, says that he is not qualified to make such a determination. This also was seconded by Indiana's State Solicitor General, Mr. Thomas Fisher. He says that the governor was concerned about properly screening Syrians, again, as they came into the country, and removing potential terrorists. But he says that the FBI is the one, and the State Department are the ones chiefly responsible for making this determination, and not the governor. Also, the court said, quote, that begging the question, are Syrians the only Muslims that Indiana fears? Also, well, they said this has nothing to do with religion, this process of settling Syrians, and also they said that this has to do with what's going on in Syria, the ongoing civil war. So they have come down very firmly in favor of supporting the Obama administration, allowing these human beings who have been displaced by the war there into various parts of the United States. And the only thing is that while we may enjoy favorable Muslim-friendly policies domestically in the United States, the great concern is translating that, converting that also into foreign policies that are favorable to Muslim countries and Muslims like the Palestinians and many others, inshallah. We would like to move to our next story. It also keeps us in the United States. We go further south to the U.S. state of Georgia. This is a story that has to do with masjid constructions. This is one of the areas, one of the lines of attack against Islam and Muslims. The hijab, the beard, to some extent, even the Arabic name, especially when traveling, all of these are lines of attack against Islam as well as masjid construction. A county in Georgia State, Newton County, had taken measures, the county commissioners had taken measures to prevent the construction of religious buildings, to grant permits for the construction of these buildings. However, again, we're talking about the federal government has intervened in this case in a way that is favorable to the Muslims, to lift a ban to allow the Muslims to construct masjids and get permits where necessary, specifically in Newton County where the issue has come up. However, we should remind you that there are many cities and counties, districts in the United States that have been fighting masjid construction. And so this is just one in a series of stories where Muslims are struggling to have masjid construction. And it expands, of course, outside the United States. The Greek Muslims have a very similar challenge, Italian Muslims. We have stories also in Australia. It's essentially non-Muslim countries. We run the risk of a number of different forms of persecution because of our Islamic faith. And so they have gotten support from CARE in this case in Newton County, Georgia, the Council on American Islamic Relations, they were active, as well as a long-standing, a very old civil rights organization, the National, NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. They worked together to help achieve this victory for the federal government to intervene to allow this construction to move forward. We go to another story dealing with another one of these lines of attack against Islam, the hijab. We go to Nigeria in West Africa, to Lagos State. This is a long story about Muslim students being able to wear hijab at high school. There has been some back and forth with a ban imposed by the school, and the case has made its way through the court system all the way up to the Court of Appeals, that on July the 21st overturned an earlier decision by a lower court to permit the students to wear hijab in Lagos State. Now we hear that there's a movement against the appellate court decision. They're challenging this decision by the appellate court in Lagos. And one of the attorneys that is representing the students, Tajuddin Belogun, is one of the attorneys representing the students, spoke with a Turkish news agency, Anadolu, and said that the appeal had been filed on September 16th, just a few days ago, but that the students are committed to obviously continuing to wear the hijab. And their interpretation, the lawyers representing the students, say that because the last legal action that has been in place, that the students should be able to continue to wear the hijab, despite the fact that the decision, the July 21st case, is being challenged. And in other words, it takes an actual court ruling to reverse the legality in the case, not just some hostile sentiments against hijab. And so the lawyers are obviously supporting the students, and also a Muslim student organization, the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria, the MSSN. They're calling on the authorities, the education authorities in Nigeria, as well as teachers, to respect the existing court ruling. That is the most recent ruling of July 21st that permits the hijab. We wish the sisters, the Muslim families, success in their efforts, inshallah, to be able to wear hijab as they pursue their education, gain knowledge, information, training, skills, to better serve not only the Muslim Ummah, but the world at large. And so we, again, support their effort, wish them success. We would like to go to the United Kingdom for our last news item for tonight. This is a piece of information that is about life-saving skills that are going to be taught by a number of masjids across the UK this weekend on Saturday after the Zohar prayer. The British Islamic Medical Association, they are scheduled to conduct this CPR training, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That is, again, this Saturday. That's the 24th. If you're in the UK, we have many viewers on that are watching Hudda TV. And if you've always been wanting to learn how to resuscitate people, maybe they've drowned, maybe they've choked on food, there are many things that we can do to intervene to save people's lives. And so CPR is a very important skill to have, and they're giving certification at a number of masjids across the UK this Saturday after the Zohar prayer. That's the midday prayer. This life-saving training will be provided free of charge. 30 masjids are participating. This is a location that you can go and get this training in addition to certificates. That's in 15 different cities across the UK, including Birmingham, Liverpool, London, Manchester, Nottingham, and several other cities. Wherever you are in the UK, you're more than likely to have at least one masjid in your vicinity that's going to be conducting CPR training. Again, they're providing certification, and if you'd like to get more information about this, to find out how close the nearest masjid is to you in the UK, you can go to the website lifesavers at British ema.org. Again, the website, Lifesavers at British IMA, that's for the Islamic Medical Association, .org, or on social media, you can put in hashtag BIMA Lifesavers. Again, hashtag BIMA Lifesavers if you want to go on social media. One of the prominent Muslim organizations in the UK is supporting this initiative, the Muslim Council of Britain, and we look forward to high participation. This is something that every human being can benefit from, and perhaps this information can also be an idea to spark, to inspire people to have similar types of training. Wherever you are in the Muslim Ummah, you can do this. Reach out to the health authorities and have professionals to conduct the training on CPR and other first aid life-saving measures, inshallah. Thank you so much for being with us. Before we look at the expected weather for tomorrow, we're going to look at a couple items, or at least one item for this day in history. And it takes us to the East African country of Kenya. 3 years ago, on this day in history, September the 21st, 2013, there were multiple gunmen who attacked a high-end shopping mall that's owned by Israeli nationals. The mall is called Westgate Shopping Mall, located in the Westlands district of Nairobi. The attackers were later identified as al-Shabaab militants, and in fact, al-Shabaab did claim responsibility for the attack. There were more than 65 civilians who were killed, unarmed, innocent civilians who were there shopping in this mall. The official numbers are listed as 67 people who were killed in the mall, in addition to more than 175 others who were injured. The shooting started at around noon on this day in history and continued for hours. As you can imagine, in a shopping mall, a very large shopping mall, there were people all over the mall, and they were running, seeking refuge, hiding, and waiting for the police to intervene. And the gunfight, the standoff between the attackers and the police lasted for 48 hours, an entire and complete 2 days. The Israeli military reportedly joined and supported the Kenyan forces, as well as British police who were based in Kenya. Grenade explosions were also reported by eyewitnesses and survivors, including an employee of the Dutch embassy who was having lunch at a restaurant inside the mall at the time of the attack. In terms of the identity of the victims, the vast majority, as you might imagine, were Kenyan nationals. They're listed at nearly 50 people. Of the 67 were Kenyans. The next largest group who suffered attacks in terms of nationality were British. 4 British nationals were killed in this attack, 3 Indians, 2 Canadians, and 1 from each of the following countries. That's 1 person from Australia, 1 from China, Ghana, the Netherlands, Peru, South Africa, South Korea, and the Caribbean island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. As for the identity of the attackers, Kenya's defense chief said that they were from a number of different countries. The Interior Ministry for Kenya said that they were numbered between 10 and 15 individuals. We believe that most of them, if not all of them, were shot and killed by the police during the response to this 48-hour standoff. Just one very deadly attack that occurred on this day in history. Many have described it as the most deadly attack in Kenya's modern history. We'd like, inshallah, to shift to our social segment. We have a break. I have the honor of hosting tonight's discussion on Myanmar, Burma. Short break, look at our expected weather. We come back with Professor emaad.muhanna to talk about Myanmar, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Hada tonight. We would like to continue with our social segment. Very powerful, motivational speaker during our break there. We appreciate all these servants of Allah, inshallah, and may He accept their efforts. We're a little bit late coming back. We had a technical difficulty, but we, inshallah, alhamdulillah, will continue with a very important discussion with Professor emaad.muhanna, our guest for the evening. Assalamu alaikum, Professor. Welcome to...
Walaikum salam, and happy Eid to all Muslims worldwide.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to read a question that the professor prepared for us to frame our discussion, to set us up for discussing the Rohingya Muslims, the situation in Burma or Myanmar. He asked the question, what happens when a government systematically isolates an ethnic minority, denies its members citizenship rights, sends them to refugee camps, and looks away as there is a campaign of ethnic violence that targets them? Ultimately, it promises also to drive them out of the country. That's the question Professor has used to frame our discussion. Can you please start with an overview historically about what has brought us to the current situation where these Rohingya Muslims, they're not the only ethnicity of Muslims in the country that are suffering, but there's a very great intolerance to Muslims in Burma.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's in general targeting Muslims, whether even from Indian origin or even from other Asian states. I think it goes back to 1960. If we look at the population overall, it's about 44 million people. The capital hosts about 5 million citizens, and the majority of population are Buji in religions. They go back to some Chinese origin. Muslims are very much a minority in Burma or Myanmar. They've been targeted since 1960. The Buji people believe they are not indigenous people in Myanmar, and therefore shouldn't enjoy the same rights. And I want to stop on this particular point and give a historical overview of what happened worldwide when it comes to minority people. Before 1945, there was no drawing of borders or boundaries. So countries were just, into each other, no formal boundaries as we've seen it in modern times. You need visas and things like that. It was very easy before 1945 or the Second World War. And therefore, we cannot recognize any group of people that are not indigenous unless they are after 1945. So before 1945, there was no population that can be characterized as a particular citizenship. If we look at the situation in the Arab world, Jordan and Palestine were one country. If we look at before the Second World War, Egypt and Sudan were one country.
That's right.
We're talking about the Arab Peninsula. We never really noticed how far Saudi Arabia is, or Yemen, or Emirates, or Kuwait. So before 1945 and the establishment of the United Nations, no group of people can claim that they are indigenous and the others are not. So we are equal as long as we moved to that particular country before that time. Take that situation to United States. What happened since the Civil War? The indigenous Red Indians in the United States, and then we've got the European people moving their majority, the British or even the Irish. So therefore, how would you say that the Chinese-looking people in the United States are not indigenous? How would you say that the Arab-looking in the United States are not indigenous? The African-looking are not indigenous? If the people have moved to any particular country before 1945, they are entitled to be living in that country because no formal boundaries, no official states before 1945.
It's very interesting. You're challenging our concept of what it means to be indigenous.
Our history is kind of off track because we don't really analyze things the right way. Look at any country before drawing formal boundaries, the declaration of formal boundaries after the establishment of 1945, the United Nations. Before that, you can't say that, well, this is the line of Palestine, this is the line of Jordan, this is the line of Egypt. And therefore, we can clearly say that the Israeli occupation of Palestine is illegal. Why? Because they were some Jewish people in Palestine before 1945, but they never had a state. That's why we say it's illegal. Why? Because the establishment of the state was in 1947. So after the drawing of boundaries, 2 years. So if we had, let's say, a lot of Jewish people, and they announced the state before 1945, would have had really a very weak case. But the fact here is, 1945, the establishment of the United Nations, drawing boundaries, you know, between all countries, and then the protection rule of England over Palestine and Egypt. In 1947, England decides to withdraw from the protection rule, leaving behind a crisis, because at that time the Israelis or the Jewish people announced the establishment of the Israeli or the Jewish state. So therefore we have a strong case. But let's compare, so for our respected viewers to understand why I can't say that the Budi people in Myanmar are entitled to take out the Muslims, because the Muslims have been there for hundreds of years. But yes, the Palestinians are entitled to get out the Jewish people out of Palestine. Why? Because their establishment of the state was after 1947, where it was declared an Arab state without the Jews. That's how we should evaluate things. Otherwise, if you look at the entire world, even the Arab world, you probably have about 35% of Egyptians belong to the Arab tribes. Mehana is an Arab tribe. It's from the Hijaz.
You mean from the peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula?
Yes, from Medina. That's where Mehana is. So we can't really say this is an Egyptian and this is an Saudi, etc. So this is just the context of how we analyze, so we don't really take one side.
Before we leave this definition, this concept of indigenous identity, relate this to what I don't know if it's a legal or a cultural term, ancestral lands, meaning that my father, my grandfather, great-grandfather have been buried in this location.
Absolutely.
How does that?
It definitely ties with it, because if you look at it, if we're talking about 300-400 years for these people, so that means how many generations are buried in there? So you can't really say. One of the interesting countries, and President Mandela, the late President Mandela, understood that particular concept very well. When he took over in 1994, there is group of people in South Africa. The white people, about 7-8 million people. The majority are Dutch and British. The Africans, about 35 million, belong to 9 tribes. The Xhosa tribe is where President Mandela and Mugabe from, Zuma from the Zulu tribe. And then you've got the colored people, you know, an Arab married to an Indonesian, so the kid is classified colored, and you've got an Indian, about 2.5 million. Now, can you tell the Indians this is not your indigenous land? He didn't do that. So if it was that way, then the African people would have taken out the whites and the colored and the Indians. So we've got to change the concept. And I think the problem here, as you read in introduction, it goes back to government, because the government has not implemented a proper cultural explanation to what indigenous people mean. So people need to understand that, yes, your ancestors are here. Probably this is your land long ago, but the world has changed.
So you mean to say that anthropologists or whoever the authorities are on cataloging ethnicities around the world don't have a uniform definition of what it means to be an indigenous person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not really proper, and therefore you'll find that the United Nations is not even finding a proper solution to solve this. But I think the simple concept that I talked about, that's the only way to do it. Anybody who is allocated or relocated to any country before the establishment of the United Nations is regarded indigenous. Don't tell me that's not my land. Otherwise, the whole world will be divided.
Maybe it would make more sense if we said native. Would you agree with that term as well?
Yes.
Okay, native to whatever land. If you move there, if you can prove, you have documents that your forefathers were in the country
Yes.
prior to 1945.
Or give a definition of 2 generations.
Okay.
My dad and my grandfather. Then don't take me out on the basis that, you know, so if the example of South Africa, you're talking about the 1700s when the Europeans moved there, you know, the Indian-Dutch company. So what you're talking about here, how do I tell European people in South Africa, after 250 years, that's not your land?
That you know, yeah.
Did you have a country? Here's a question. Did you have a country in South Africa 250 years ago? Did you have a state that you can claim that you are a native and I'm a foreigner? You didn't have a state. I moved when it was a world of chaos, just to put it in a simple term. Okay? So, yes, I can say people that come to certain countries like Egypt, for example, because Egypt had a state for a long time.
And just to clarify, when you say world of chaos, you don't mean the people who were there were not organized. You mean that there were no international standards?
No international standards, no boundaries, no international bodies. So it was about power, you know, the powerful rules. So here we've got to always analyze things in a very basic concepts. What do you mean by indigenous? What do you mean by native? Native, it was your land. Maybe you came from somewhere else. And I'll give you an example. If we say that the Maori people, Maori tribes in New Zealand are native people, they found in there Egyptian tombs.
In New Zealand?
In New Zealand. Would you say that the Egyptians were native in there? So it becomes very difficult. And this is how, when government, here it comes to your introduction, when government leaves things to people, this is where it becomes a chaos. You have to put certain standards, saying, well, when did these people move? We'll put a definition on that.
Now, the whole reason why you're starting with this, I get it, because the government in Myanmar, historically, for decades, has said that these people are squatters.
Yeah.
And there's no ancestral connection to these. They just came over from Bangladesh, and they call them Bengalis.
Yes.
And so they have a law, I think it was passed in 2002,
yes,
that says that if they can document, they don't use 45 though, interestingly.
Yeah.
They use, I believe, 1968.
Which we're giving them the easier solution. You know, 68 in Myanmar might be 50 in Egypt, might be 60 in Saudi Arabia. So we've got to have an international standard and a rule that says if people moved to any particular country before the establishment of United Nations or the enforcement of boundaries declaration, then these people are indigenous, you can't take them out. This is how it gets done. And that's why I'm you know, talking about President Mandela, because he could have done a reversed apartheid.
Right. These people came from another land.
Exactly.
Therefore, just like Mugabe did.
Yes.
And
exactly.
Idi Amin before him.
Exactly.
In,
but
Uganda.
Mugabe actually did it not because he believes in it, because Tony Blair always used to fund, when he was in power, or England in general, used to fund the remaining of the white people in Zimbabwe, and therefore Mugabe was okay. But when they stopped financing Zimbabwe, that's where he turned against them. So the fact here is we've got to put a definition, and that particular definition puts also the ground for international law. So if I want to take a case to international court, now we've got 140 people being displaced since over the last few years.
Sorry to interrupt you, Professor. Please don't lose your train of thought. We have a phone call from an activist, a Rohingya Muslim activist from Myanmar. He is a member of the Rohingya media activists. This is Shah Hussein. Shah Hussein. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Shah. Welcome to Huddah tonight.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah, we are very privileged and honored to have you join us. We're very sensitive as Muslims and as conscientious human beings to the plight of the Muslims in Myanmar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please help us understand the situation there and the new party of the NLD party. Do you see them being able to do anything to reverse the status quo in the country?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank all the Al-Huda team for letting us deliver our message to the Muslim Ummah and to the world. Actually, we have been looking for such opportunities to let our voice heard all over the world. Because as a stateless person, we do not have any official media where we can report what is going on actually with the Muslim brothers, Rohingya brothers in Burma. If you wanted to know, there is a newly elected NLD party, which they call themselves as democratic, but in reality they are not as democratic as it should be. Because in democracy, what I was taught since my childhood, a democracy means where all human beings, even animals, should be equally treated. But here in democracy, for us, the Rohingya Muslims, it have been remained as different since the NLD party came. You see, we were actually regularly tortured or oppressed before the NLD. Now, when the NLD came, the Rohingya has been still under oppression by the Buddhist extremist people. You see, if you want to know, we are not telling that all Buddhists are actually, who follow the ways of extremism.
That's right.
No, actually, Buddhist is a religion of peace, like any other religion. But in the Buddhist people in Myanmar, especially in Rakhine state, they have a mindset that the Rohingyas are not the people of this country. They may one day come to you and snatch away your country, snatch away your rights. From the childhood, they have been getting this mindset. So when they get up as a young man, when they grow up, they try to oppress the man. And suppose when we are oppressed, we go to the government to complain that this guy did some bad things with me. The government will just simply say, okay, we will look after that, what happened. And we never get any kind of the simplest, justice from that government. So this is what's going on. Even though NLD, a democratic party, came, but still we are remained as a, countryless or stateless people in Burma.
Brother, can you tell us, is it the majority of the Muslims there that face this plight of refugee camps, no human and civil rights? Is it the majority, or because aren't there about 2 million Muslims who actually do have citizenship? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually correct. There are not, if you calculate the whole Burma population, you will find some of them are Muslims. But one way, they have to stay by changing their names. There is a rule in Burma that whoever can stay there as a Muslim, but he has to choose a Buddhist name. That is totally different from Muslim names. Suppose my name is Hussein, I have to choose another name as a Buddhist also. So they are called Burmese Muslims.
Burmese Muslims.
Yeah, they are called Burmese Muslims. But we particularly on the Arakan State is a country beside Bangladesh, bordering with Bangladesh. Our most people is nearly, nearly 1 million is there. So they have been staying there, last 400 years, our forefathers was there. Still, because the Arakan State is bordering Bangladesh, they used to accuse us, saying that you just crossed Bangladesh and came to us. So you are not allowed anywhere here. The religious conflict started in more than before 70 years ago. when the religious conflict started, since today it is going on, and we have been suffering the denial of our rights from every aspect, and we have been suffering. And as you question, saying that if there are Muslims or not, yes, there are Muslims, but particularly Muslims are minority. They are calculated as 5% of total population only.
5%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we want to, anything else that you'd like to share with us before we close the telephone with you, brother? Anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with us that you think is important?
Of course, sir. That will be a really great opportunity for me. I hope that all viewers of Huda TV, now we have applied, we have Rohingya applied. Mostly the Muslim countries and especially the Arab countries have been standing with us very strongly from the beginning of the crisis. The biggest crisis started in 2012. From that time, Egypt, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they have been standing and protesting in the Burmese embassies or consulates, claiming our rights, our freedoms, and our just basic rights. So we are not asking someone to fight for us, to kill for us. No, we are just asking someone to accept us as the citizen of this country, because our fathers, our grandfathers, and our fathers of our grandfathers have been staying in this country. There is no other country we can go. This is the country we were born, and this is the country we love. So we are not going anywhere else. We have our language, we have our identity, so we are keeping that with us. And we are going to love this country also. So we need the voices of all Ummah to stand with us, to ask this Burmese government to free us and to give us freedom, and to accept us as the citizen of Burma.
One last question from our guest, Dr. Emaad.muhanna. He'd like to ask you a question, brother, before you hang up.
Yes, please.
Brother Shah, have you kind of argued that, as you said, you've been there for 400 years, was Burma a state at the time, or was it just a land of tribes and few families living around without any official borders of Burma or Myanmar?
Yes, you are right. At that time, if you look back to the history, Burma has been a part of colonization. At that time, there was, before even Burma became as a state, sometimes it was called as Bengal state, a kingdom of Bengal. There were some even, Muslim rulers were there, and then Buddhist rulers came, and then Hindu rulers came. So many, dynasties changed.
What I'm trying to say is that, as I was saying in introduction, the world has failed to put a proper definition to what indigenous people mean. And therefore, I'm saying that any state or any migration or anybody that relocates from one piece, part of a land to another part, before 1945, the establishment of the United Nations and drawing official borders should be regarded indigenous. So what I'm saying is that you need to, kind of research this and take it as a point of argument that you've been here, you've been in Burma for 400 years. There was no states in the world that time. The states were officially announced after the establishment of the United Nations in 1945. So, and I was saying in the example, Egypt has a lot of, people from the Arab Peninsula. They have people from the West. So how do you say that this is an indigenous Egyptian and this one is not? So we go back to when Egypt was established as a state. For example, in 1936, that's when it was first announced as a free country. So what I'm saying, you need to research and have a group of people that can argue this. When did Burma when was Burma established as official state? anybody who's landed in Burma before that time should be regarded indigenous.
And their descendants.
Exactly. So, for example,
exactly,
if you've got, for example, people from Burma coming to Egypt now, I can say these people are not indigenous. Why? Because Egypt is a state. Okay?
Yes,
So you came
right.
with a visa or came as a migrant, as a refugee.
Yes.
But if Egypt had no official borders and you came to live with me and we lived in peace, why do you want now me to leave the country? So you need to argue this point. You've been there for 400 years. There was no state at the time, and therefore the Arab League should take this, an official way to put a definition to this, because we can't just come, a group of people in any country, and take whoever we don't like. No, I came here first.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
There's no legal basis for it.
Yeah.
All right.
You're right, sir. You're right, sir. If you look at some of the basics of Rohingya community in Burma, I would like to say that the Rohingya people have been, there was a time before 1982, they have been holding official status of citizenship in Burma.
Okay.
But suddenly, because, Burma before NLD, it was a communist government.
Yes.
Suddenly in 1982, a new rule came which left us without any citizenship. If you look back, also, there were so many conferences and meetings. Our leaders tried to sit with the Buddhist historians and government officials, but they were always denying the truth. So on these basics of their side-made truth, they are always trying to deny that we are the indigenous people, a part of indigenous people of Burma. So we have been facing, this man-made denial always. But it is not that we are not trying. We are not trying to sit with them. It is not that we are not requesting them. We are doing everything we can do except taking arms, except because we do not want to go that way.
Yeah.
Our leaders are always forbidding us.
Brother Shadi,
we have to leave. We have to close the line. Brother Shay, thank you so much. Again, it's a great honor to have you join us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you and all Muslims fighting for justice for the Rohingya and all Muslims, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. And we, need to continue, inshallah. Yeah. Before he called, would you like to say more? Were you about to ask him another question?
I thought as the world is moving towards a federal kind of governance in a number of countries, now we've got the Western plan to divide Iraq and have a Kurdi rule and a Shia rule and a Sunni rule in Iraq, and they're trying to do the same in Libya. Why don't you do this here? You've got a Muslims and a Buddhist, and if you don't want to accept them under the Burma rule law as citizens, then give them an independence and have a federal governance.
In fact, that's what the UN said about Palestine.
Exactly.
When going back to
a two-state solution, a two-state solution.
Have a Jewish state and a Palestinian state, or an Arab state.
Yes. So this is where we find a double standard of how things are looked at in a conflict resolutions. In terms of the other moves in the world, I think as he mentioned, some assistance has been going to Burma from the Arab states, but we need a stronger kind of a stand. Al-Azhar has issued a statement basically condemning the violence against the Muslims in Burma. The European Union has been sending a lot of money, probably close to 12 million, which is not a lot of money, I'm sorry. But United States issued, the House of Representatives issued the resolution 418 that basically requesting the Burma government to stop persecution, and the marginalization of Muslims.
But there's no enforcement.
No enforcement. So it's very much what we've seen in Palestine is happening in Burma. The same thing is happening, and it's happening in a lot of areas. We've seen that in Yugoslavia. The four, republics, Sarajevo, and we've seen Serbia you know, killing the Muslims in Bosnia, and after a few years and killing a lot of people, started to settle. So we hope that we don't see this in Burma, because the people are minority. They can't fight. So if we're talking about 5% against 95, it's very hard.
What do you think about this conference that the new government called for? They invited all these persecuted ethnic groups.
Yeah.
Some of them have taken up arms. The Muslims haven't, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, Kofi Annan was put as a head of the this new government commission.
Yeah.
To look into the subject. So there are movements setting up this commission headed by Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General.
Yeah.
This conference inviting all these people to come and attend. What do you think is going to happen? I mean,
this is what I always say, that we've got to learn from history. Israel does a lot of conferences about peace, but they actually occupying land illegally. What peace are you talking about? The government of Burma is capable of stopping the violence. It's very easy as a president or a governor or a prime minister to say, stop this. These Muslims are citizens. It's done. And if you commit any violence as a non-Muslim, let's not call Buddha, a non-Muslim against a Muslim, then you will be persecuted. You will be penalized. Then it will stop. But what the government is doing is playing on time. Why do they bring Kofi Annan and have such conferences? Because the world has really been looking at them.
yeah.
You know, what is it that you're doing? You're actually enforcing this, or you're feeding it under the table. You're feeding the violence under the table. So international conferences that call for peace and a solution, it's only to show the world that it's not us. It's not the government that is doing that. It's just the people. It's just some fighting on a ground level. But this is not a fighting. This is a systematic genocide. And this is the right word that they always use in international law. It's a systematic, mean it's organized, it's being funded, it's legalized, even though it's not on the table. But the fact here is conferences will do nothing. We always have to have some sort of enforcement. When did the problem or the genocide stopped in Yugoslavia? When international community got in there, and United Nations sent troops, stopped. So without this, it's not going to happen. I believe they already asked for United Nations troops to as a peace keeping.
So you're saying at best symbolic, and at worst just disingenuous theater.
It's just a continue. And look at the psychological, and this is very important because people on the ground level don't understand politics. On a ground level, psychologically, it gives people the impression, well, here's the international world, the world is there, there's a conference, nothing is happening, so we carry on. This is what it does. Now, if you look at the same situation, a peace conference in around Palestine and the settlement, okay? Nothing happens. It's just for show. What is the psychological impact on both sides? On Palestinians, I've talked to some Palestinian officials. He said to me, we know that we're not going to get it back. This is the kind of frustration you get. Now, on the Israeli side, it encouraged people to continue doing what they're doing because they know in the end that there is no punishment. It's just conferences for show, but on a ground level, nothing is enforced. So we don't want people of Burma or the Muslims worldwide to believe that something's going to happen. Peace, as President Sadat says, peace has to have an arm. It has to have a sword to enforce it.
And to add insult to injury, just this week, the state counselor Aung San Suu Kyi, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, she received the Humanitarian of the Year award by Harvard Foundation in the United States. And the Muslim students at Harvard are saying, this is a slap in the face. You're giving her Humanitarian award?
You basically protecting corruption. That's what you're doing. So the fact here is, and it's come, unfortunately, it's come to the end that we've got to believe. And remember when we were talking about the international forces came to Palestine, to Syria, and we said, nobody's your friend. You know, when Russia took a side of the Arabs on some state, and we said, you know, the Arabs were saying, you know, good, Russia's with us. Nobody's with you.
It's only interests and benefits.
Exactly.
Right?
So we've got to understand this very well, and if you don't have a proper ground to fight your case, nothing is going to happen.
Doctor, we're ready to take a look at a report that we've put together looking at an overview, a summary of Myanmar or Burma. Inshallah, we'll come back to continue with Dr. Emaad.
At the end of a jetty on the coast of Bangladesh, the sound of misery rises up above the wind and the waves. 140 men and boys have been caught by the Coast Guard. They're Muslims from neighboring Burma, and they're pleading and praying for their lives. Oh Allah, save us, they cry. But the officers aren't listening. After weeks of violence in northwest Burma, members of the Muslim minority called the Rohingya are trying to flee, but no one wants them. An officer takes photos. His colleagues hand out water and a packet of rice, and then they order the group back out to sea. Their boats are leaking and they're badly overloaded, but it's not the voyage these men fear most. It's returning to Burma. They'll kill me, says this man. An officer from the Coast Guard replies, Allah will save you. Now go back. In Burma's Rakhine state, the fires have been burning for weeks.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Very disturbing images, and this reminds us that this spike in violence against the Rohingya, Doctor, was in 2012. There was an escalation in tensions.
Yes.
Masjids were being destroyed, houses were being destroyed, marketplaces, and they were fleeing by tens of thousands.
As we've seen, they're actually sending them out to sea. So it's a kind of, you know, sending them to die kind of thing. There is no even human kind of mercy for these kids to even, you know, say, well, kids are staying, for example, and send people out.
And last year, there were a series of countries that said, we won't take them, and they turned them back away.
Yes,
Indonesia, the Philippines,
India,
Malaysia, Thailand, all of them said,
even.
And the Philippines as well. And finally, after at least 2 to 3 months, they said, okay, we'll temporarily house them for a year.
Yes.
But there has to be action to stop this, and then the Myanmar government said...
but this is very important when it comes to, you know, economics as well, because we've got to understand that the, you know, states are working on budgets and things like that. So you can't expect them even to take them. Yes, it's unhumane, but we've got to be realistic when we solve problems. So why would you accept Philippines to take them? You know, they're not Muslims, for example, as the Philippines.
And they're developing countries.
Exactly. So they're poor. They have their own budgets. They have their own problems as well. You're getting a lot of people without any papers. You don't know where they come from. So we've got to be realistic of why people don't take them, or states don't take them. Australia has been taking a lot of people, actually, in the past few years.
Although they have a controversial camp off the coast of the mainland.
But that's the Australian system. They don't allow you into the mainland. That's worldwide. Even with the Arabs, they do the same. They have camps. It's a kind of a big, huge prison, like the Gaza kind of camps. I want to go back to the actual scenario of why are Muslims targeted worldwide? Is it something to do with ideologies, or is it something to do with us? Or is it something to do with the international law? Or is it the modern state systems? I think there's a lot of reasons that can actually tell us why Muslims are targeted worldwide. Bosnia, Palestine, Myanmar, the India and Pakistan, Kashmir, in Europe. So it's not as violence, but it's a marginalization. I think it goes back to a number of reasons. Number one is that we have become a weak nation. We forgot our religion, we forgot our principles, so God has made us that way. When we, and as Umar ibn Khattab, the second Khalifa, said, that we've been given dignity by Islam, and if we turn our back into it, we will lose it. And it basically answers all questions. Why are we this way? Because we've got weak nations, weak organizations, and weak population. We are weak inside us. And therefore, there is no kind of a unity that gathers us to say, we've got to put a solution. You know, to end at this point, if we're looking at the woman that was kind of, you know, her clothes were lift up during the time of the Prophet, and she said, "Wa Muhammadat," meaning calling upon Muhammad, and he went out with an army. The same thing happened in Europe during the Al-Mu'tasim, and he was 17. That ruler in Iraq was 17, and he basically kind of sent a warning to the governor. He said, "I will prepare an army. His beginning is by you, and his end, and the army's end is by me." So that's how huge army he can prepare.
And what was the reason?
A woman
had been
clothes
violated.
were lift up. So this is how we should be strong, not by just armies, but it's the ideology. If we are a strong nation, close to God, and have that sort of understanding that's been there, I think we will go back to being a powerful nation.
I think the proof lies in the example of Jews.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're backed by this most powerful military in the world.
Yeah.
If something happens to a Jew or an Israeli,
they move. Yeah. So we've got to go back to our religion, our proper concept of understanding and unity. As the Prophet said, that Muslims are like a one body. If Burma is in pain, then Egypt should be in pain. That's how it should work. But all we're doing now is just on a social media. Oh, shame. Well, that's very sad. But we're doing nothing. So unfortunately, at least from the people on the ground level, some sort of you know, donation that can help. And then there's a lot of international organizations that can help them you know, collect some money and give them relief. At least send them some food, or prepare, you know, boats that can take these people out. But on the United Nations side, I think it's been very slow, and very sad to say that United Nations, when it comes to genocide on the Muslim side, they're very slow. We've seen that in Yugoslavia. It took a very long time. We've seen the problem in Kashmir. It's been there for decades. Nothing happens. So, and also I've seen a very clear absent role of the Pan-Asia organization. So this is, you know, the organization, the Asian organization, that basically sort of supranational organization that should do something about this, because it destabilizes the region.
So you made a good point, Doctor. You're saying essentially, in a single word, the reason why Muslims are targeted internationally is because we're weak.
We're weak.
Weakness.
Yeah.
Which translates into a lack of respect.
Yes.
For citizenship, basic civil and human rights,
yes.
etc.
Yes. Power is always, and I'm not talking about the military power, power from within that creates. Why Muslims are basically scary at the beginning. The Prophet said that I was giving victory with fear for a month march. So before I reach people, a month before I reach them, they escape. That's how that's a fear of internal strength. It's like when you fight with somebody and you know he's really tough.
Yeah.
If he gets you, you did. That's a kind of, so he hasn't been to you, he hasn't reached you, anything. You are hiding. But just your fear of him, that's what we're talking about. Why? Because we're solid, we're strong, and we're united. This is very important. We've got a civil war almost everywhere, whether it's based on politics or ideologies or economic. And unfortunately, in the end, and one of the, our respected sheikhs was just saying, even in the Arab world, you can unite on one single resolution to solve a problem. 23 countries can't even gather on one single case. How do we solve a problem in Syria? Can't do anything. We just sit and watch what they do to us. When it comes to sort of the approach of international community when it comes to this, they follow a process. In the beginning, just some sort of peace talks, sending aid. If there's some people, some countries are willing to take some of these refugees, they register them and take them as, as a second phase. So they send aid first, try to talk them through it. If it doesn't work, then they start going through the refugee camps and then move to other countries, allow them to move to other countries, and then instruct countries or talk to other countries to accept them. Last, right at the end, we've got military intervention. And I think this situation has reached, in a very short time, in these 4 years, and it's not short time for them, but looking at how the international world, the United Nations moves, this is quite a short time for them. So I think the military intervention is the way forward, and I think it doesn't have to be fully United Nations. The Pan-Asia can do it.
You mean UN peacekeeping?
UN peacekeepings, and it can go beyond that, as it happened in Yugoslavia. Because the peacekeeping in Yugoslavia didn't work at the beginning, so they started targeting.
NATO got involved.
Iraq was the same. That was not a peacekeeping, that was a destroying force.
Which Pan-African, Pan-Asian entity were you referring to?
The organization, the Asian organization, like the African Union.
The ASEAN?
Yeah, the ASEAN.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So that organization, it's got powerful countries. It's got China. China next to him, I think China can do something, even by just helping people. And I do believe that it destabilizes the region, because and that's the reason why countries are not accepting them, because they are limited to budgets and policies.
Another unfortunate aspect to this, Doctor, as I'm sure you're aware, these tens of thousands of people in boats like this, some of them are very attractive to human traffickers.
This is actually
who are looking for cheap labor to run, for example, fishing operations.
Yes. Human trafficking is unfortunately has increased quite dramatically because incidents like this. And believe me, it's actually happening sometimes willingly. That people will sell themselves for trafficking because of the kids. We'll give you, for example, $5,000 for your kids.
If you run a kilo of coke into this country.
Yes, or they sell the body parts.
Sexual.
Besides sexual, the body parts for hospitals.
Extracting, harvesting organs and stuff.
So this is unfortunately happening quite a lot. And for a very poor man, you can expect, or even terrorism. And I think Daesh has already announced that they're targeting people from countries like this. Daesh has already made a statement they're targeting people like this. And let's look at it psychologically. If somebody like you and me, and very, victimized, the kids are murdered, whatever, would you expect somebody in a situation like this to reject an offer with money to be a terrorist? I think he'll accept it. So we've got to be, and this is really the human fact that we've got to understand. And even when it comes to Palestine, they were studying the phenomena of the suicide bombers. You know, it's very hard for them to understand it, but it's quite simple. It's quite simple. You're killing them, destroying their lives, so I'm dead anyway. So I'm gonna accept.
But also, Doc, we know that these people are very cunning. The people who prey on these vulnerable,
yes,
they're very cunning. Maybe they give them a nice meal, some new clothes, and they say, you know, we're going to give you money and time, but that never comes.
Exactly.
Right?
Or get misused, as you said, in human trafficking or drugs or whatever. And these people are dead anyway. So, you know, it might work. It just pass through with drugs. And that's where
so it's trafficking drugs, trafficking weapons, sex,
body
slavery,
parts,
harvesting organs.
Yeah, a lot. And terrorism. This is on top of that, terrorism, because we've got to look at it from the, as I said, the psychological part of it is that it's hatred. It's hatred. It takes a very long time. And if you look at countries that, you know, enforce some sort of discrimination against a group of people based on religion or color or ethnicity or culture, you always have that hatred. Always. It takes, I don't think it goes away. So once you start something, it's just not going to end.
And he did say, Brother Shah, called in and said that the Buddhist majority, he said, from a young age, they're taught that these people are a threat because they want to take over the country.
Yes, that's the ideology part. The same thing is happening in Israel. They teach kids, this is, you know, from Farad to the Nile, that's your state. The Arabs are the enemy, and we're teaching our kids that we've got a peace agreement with Israel. They are friends, and as the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs, he said that you are from us and we are from you. So we're saying that as Arab, we are one blood. That's what Arab we're saying, and the Israelis are teaching the kids that these are your enemy. This is where ideologies play a part, and it's very dangerous. By the time they grow up and become, you know, men, they've already kind of absorbed all these ideologies and hatred. And don't expect that you can change that. It's not easy to change.
It's very disturbing to see a Buddhist, and we appreciate him.
It's a religion of peace.
It's not. They don't represent the violent Buddhists.
Exactly.
Don't represent
it's not a religious.
But we have video, Doctor, of people in this Buddhist garb. You know, the maroon, dark color, beating, caning Muslims.
Yes, but in every religion, and I'm not defending the Buddhism, but in every religion you get extremists.
That's right. We're dealing with human beings.
Exactly. We've got the people that murdered the Christian Egyptians in Libya, you know, saying Allah and everything, you know, from Daesh. So in every religion you get extremists. We've got the extremism in Europe in Middle Ages, in the Christianity. You know, so extremism is always something to mess up the main path, the moderate path of any religion, and it's just something that will always remain.
And the Dalai Lama, the Tibetan Buddhist leader, has spoken up repeatedly against the practices of the Buddhists who are persecuting Muslims in Burma.
So we've got to look at the main representation of the religion. If, for example, the Vatican Papa comes out and say, you know, Christians should kill Muslims, then that's an official statement that I can look into. But if a Christian and a Muslim are fighting, then I can't say this is a Christian approach or a trend. So extremism is always there. We've seen a lot of Muslims that did bad things. And we're suffering from that, because these bad extreme Muslims are actually causing us that wrong reputation of Islam, that it's a violent religion. It's exactly the same thing. This is exactly what's happening here. The people in Burma, behaviors and mass killing, if you like, are basically damaging the reputation of the peaceful religion of Buddha. And that's it's just unfortunate that it's there. But unfortunately, in the end, this is going to have to be resolved on an international court or the international supranational organizations, the United Nations General Assembly Security Council. Security Council's resolutions should be enforced around Burma. What is it that you're going to do about it? You've already tried the aid, you've tried the refugee camps, you've tried sending them out. People are really suffering. There is, we're close to mass genocide.
And the way you see it, I mean, you're always so painfully obvious. You're saying, look, all these conferences and other symbolic theater is not going to solve it. You're saying the same prescription in Palestine is going to take military force?
Yes.
Are you also giving the same prescription in Burma?
Yeah,
Myanmar?
that's exactly. And I remember one of the professors when we were, it's in a class of political economy, he said that peace process, when they are implemented in nice countries, they take longer because people are going on holidays. But look at all conflicts that the peace process or the conference is implemented in a very harsh conditions. They get resolved. So look at the situation in Burma. Where does it get resolved? In a conference. Oh, let's host a conference in Switzerland. What has it got to do with Switzerland with Burma? Or have a Palestinian in 1993, the issue, it gets sent to Norway for a resolution.
Oslo, yeah.
What got Norway to Palestine? So this is really something that we need to look at, and we just go and come back with nothing. This is, and I think this is one of the my main concerns, is the cultural understanding and the creative thinking and the analytical thinking of our situation as Muslims. Nobody's your friend. If Russia is being good to you, it's not your friend. If America is good to you, it's not your good friend. Your friend is your brother, your Muslim brother. You know, strong education, strong culture, strong army. This is how you become a strong nation and well respected. That's how the world respects people. Powerful, not the wise.
All right. We will leave it there. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us.
Thank you.
This concludes the episode of Hudda Tonight for today. Thank you so much for being with us. We hope it was beneficial, informative, and interesting. Inshallah, we'll be back to continue the program tomorrow. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.